Yo, what is up, everybody? It's Jay the Great here, and welcome back to another Naruto reaction video here today. And today we got a video by NCHammer, and as you can tell by the title, this is Itachi's Peak Power Explained. So, firstly, folks, welcome back to another classic reaction. It's been quite some time since I have done a video like this with the face cam and just the classic reactions that many of you guys that have been subscribed for a long time are accustomed to. But I decided to bring it back. I actually missed it myself, and while I make more edited and scripted content, I want to bring you guys these kind of videos again to see how that does. If you guys enjoy, make sure you hit the like button. Greatly appreciated. All the support over the years is greatly appreciated as well. But getting to this topic here, right? Itachi's peak power, right? Many people wonder in the Naruto fandom what Itachi's theoretical full power potential could have been, right? Obviously, due to his deteriorating health, due to his terminal illness, he never quite reached that potential, right? The closest we saw to that was him as an Edo Tensei during the war arc, right, when he battled Edo Nagato and Sage Kabuto respectively. However, while alive, we never got to witness what he could have accomplished, the kind of shinobi he could have become. Right, so going into this video before NCHammer gives what I am predicting is his analysis of what his peak power would have been, right, Itachi's, I would say we could safely deduce that he most likely would have been above Obito with the orange mask and Nagato during their time in the Akatsuki, right? Because even with his terminal illness and his deteriorating health, Obito considered him a threat, right? He said, with Itachi gone, that thorn is no longer in my side, right? And then he said, if Itachi would have known more about me, I could have died, implying a level of respect there. Maybe not inferiority to Itachi, but certainly a level of respect due to the abilities and the prowess of Itachi, right? Even from their initial introduction, right? When they first met years prior, there was sort of a compromising interaction there, right? Itachi went to Obito and said, hey, I know you hate the leaf. Let's make a negotiation. And Obito being willing to engage in this negotiation implies respect, implies a level of respect for the shinobi that's in front of him, right? Which implies perhaps he deems Itachi a worthy foe, right? And Nagato, of course, is considered by many to be the strongest, and by most, one of the strongest in the Akatsuki. So again, if Itachi were to reach his ceiling and didn't have that terminal illness, he more than likely would have been the strongest in the Akatsuki. But I'm certainly curious to see what NCHammer's thoughts are. Let me know who else you would like to react to, if there's a specific video. And if enough of you guys want it, and this video does well enough, I will certainly bring it to you guys. But before I begin, anyways, really appreciate it. Hit that like button, turn on bell notifications to stay updated with yours truly. And if you are new and you enjoy, man, you mess with the kid, make sure to hit the like button, because once you do, you become part of the family forever. Let's not waste any more time, screen. Let's see what NCHammer has to say.
There are a lot of characters in Naruto who live up to the fullest of their potential, like Naruto, Sasuke, even Hinata. And usually these characters who live up to the fullest of their potentials are main characters of sort in the story. However, unfortunately, when it comes down to it, I would say for every single character who lives up to the fullest of their potential, there's two who fall short. See, because while I can sit here and definitively say Naruto and Sasuke live up to the fullest of their potential, after Naruto, Sasuke, Kakashi, and Might Guy, listing people who have lived up to the fullness of their potential gets a bit harder. However, that is
Agreed.
not the case with characters who haven't lived up to the fullest of their potential. Characters like Kiba, Shino, Neji, Tenten, basically the entirety of the Konoha 12 outside of Naruto and Sasuke, Kankuro, Tamari, and even characters who are further on the outside of the fringes than all of them, like the 4th Raikage A. A lot of characters, when we're introduced to them, are hyped up as having almost limitless possibilities, a limitless amount of potential that
I disagree with some of his mentions, such as the 4th Raikage. The 4th Raikage reached his potential, right? What he's implying is that these characters didn't get the screen time that many of the main characters, such as the protagonist himself, Naruto, got. That I agree with, right? They certainly didn't get the same screen time for obvious reasons. They weren't the pivotal characters in the story. It was Sasuke and Naruto, obviously. But the 4th Raikage did reach his potential power-wise. He was the Raikage, firstly. He was arguably the fastest shinobi on Earth post Minato's death, right? So he clearly did, but I wanted to mention that. But he is right. Many did not reach their full potential due to lack of screen time. That is a factor, right? That is a variable into why they didn't. But there are others as well. Let's continue, though.
that they would be able to tap into if things went right. But the majority of them never live up to this opportunity. And unfortunately, when it boils down to it, in no circumstance is that more prevalent than in the case of Itachi. See, because while some would absolutely argue that Itachi did live up to the fullness of his potential, as when he came back in his Edo form, he was able to go head-to-head against people like Kabuto and Edo Nagato, feats that we probably wouldn't have dreamed possible based off the Itachi that we were given while he was alive. And yet in both of these fights, even though Itachi isn't the only combatant battling against either Kabuto or Nagato, Itachi is the person who is the reason that both of these fights turn out successful for the side Itachi is fighting on. And thus,
agreed.
yeah, an argument could be made that Itachi lives up to his potential in these moments. But I'd reckon that Itachi, as he was sold to us in the beginning of Naruto, had a lot more in the tank than even that. See, because the ailments that plague Itachi are some of those well-known pieces of trivia in the entirety of the Naruto universe. He only had an MS, which he was forced to use over the span of a decade, be it either in the Uchiha Massacre or in his stint as an Akatsuki member, and he had an unnamed chakra disease that slowly but surely degraded his life force away until eventually he died of somewhat natural causes in his early 20s. See, Itachi always had potential, maybe more potential than his little brother. However, because Itachi wasn't Naruto's key rival, Itachi sticking around and possibly ending the story stronger than Sasuke was a narrative decision that unfortunately could not be made. And thus, in some way, Itachi had to be nerfed. And nerfed he was. But what if he wasn't? See, I'm trying to start a new series on this channel where I dive into characters who I believe didn't live up to their potential in Naruto and use in-universe explanations to explain how they could possibly live up to what I identify as the fullness of their greatest potential. And I believe that Itachi is one of the greatest examples of what could have been in not only Naruto, but anime history. And thus today I want to have a sit down with you and talk about the character that all of us love probably more than any other character in this story, Itachi. Because today we're talking Itachi's full potential explained. But before we get to explaining anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're feeling particularly generous and want to hear me talk about anime and manga that aren't Naruto and Boruto, go ahead and follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where I talk all other anime and manga. Or if you want to see me try to bring real-life challenges to the anime world, go ahead and follow my brand new channel that I created with Stephen He, Chris Barnett, and Danny Mata called Anime IRL. Hear me talk about anime and manga, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Talk is Anonymous, from me and Danny Mata, break down everything that happened in anime and manga this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, Itachi, I'm gonna say Totsuka Blade so loud. When Nick says the words Yada Mirror, you'll like the video. Wow, sorry. I had no idea what happened there. I think I blacked out. So, Itachi, he's got some inadequacies. Like we've already established, Itachi's two biggest inadequacies that stopped him from reaching the fullest of his potential are the fact that he only had an MS that he had to overuse and his chakra disease. Let's focus on the latter inadequacy, Itachi's unnamed chakra disease. See, we have no idea how Itachi got this chakra disease, how it works, or even why it killed him so young. But we do know that Itachi probably should have died younger than he actually did. But he artificially prolonged his life through the usage of medicinal drugs. Now we do, and by we, I mean I, have some theories about how Itachi's chakra illness came to be. See, because while we can all acknowledge why Itachi had a chakra illness, he needed to be nerfed and taken out of the story, the how of his chakra illness is what perplexes fans to this day. And while some who look for the simplest answers say that Itachi was simply born with his chakra illness, others, like myself, who search for the spice in life, theorize that possibly the chakra illness was a byproduct of the Tsukiyomi overusage. You see, because Itachi, prior to defecting from Konoha, had never shown anything even remotely close symptom-wise to the chakra disease that he was plagued with during his stint in the Akatsuki. That is to say that absolutely nothing slowed Itachi down while he was a member of the Anbu, while he was a Jonin, or while he was massacring his entire clan. And in actuality, when Itachi was cutting through the entirety of the fighting shinobi from the Uchiha clan, the most logical conclusion to come to is that Itachi wasn't plagued by the chakra disease in that moment. Because for those of you who have read Itachi's two light novels, but more specifically his second light novel, you'll know that the massacre of the Uchiha clan didn't happen in a couple of minutes. And while many would like to believe that Itachi simply slit everybody's throats while they were asleep, that is not the case. Itachi during the Uchiha massacre gets embroiled in multiple high-level fights where he either uses high-level ninjutsu or his MS abilities. In fact, prior to Itachi even starting the Uchiha massacre, he casts his girlfriend Izumi into a 60-year Tsukiyomi. Now, what we know of Itachi outside of the Uchiha massacre is doing something like that, a prolonged usage usage of the Tsukiyomi on that scale would wipe him out for an entire day. And yet Itachi was not only able to pull off the Tsukiyomi, but also proceed to get embroiled in multiple high-level fights and wipe out the entirety of the clan over the course of an entire night of fighting. And therefore I, and a lot of people because of the video I made about it, theorize that the reason that Itachi suffered from a chakra illness was the usage of Tsukiyomi against Izumi. See, we've seen Itachi use Tsukiyomi 3 times. Well, 4 times, but against 3 people. Itachi has used Tsukiyomi on Sasuke twice, Kakashi once, and Izumi once. However, 3 of those times are not like the other. See, the longest time period that Itachi uses Tsukiyomi against either Kakashi or Sasuke is 72 hours, which he does to Kakashi. And while one can make the argument that using it for longer than 72 hours isn't necessary, one could also make the argument that every single second that Itachi spends in the Tsukiyomi universe equals a second of his real life, or a somewhat equivalent exchange. And thus the reason that Itachi A, rarely uses Tsukiyomi, and B, whenever he does use it, never uses it for longer than 3 days, is because after Itachi used Tsukiyomi on Izumi for 60 or so years to show her her entire life with him, he didn't have that much more life force to use on Tsukiyomi. And when we consider the fact that Itachi did use 60 years of Tsukiyomi life on Izumi when he was 13 years old, him dying 7 or 8 years after that when he was roughly 20-ish, but his biological clock would make him 80-ish, would make a fair amount of sense because that's when people die, around 80. Tie this into the fact that the medicine that Itachi took to prolong his life was revealed to us in Sasuke Jin Raiden, a light novel about Sasuke waking up after the battle against Itachi, but before he gets Itachi's eyes, where Sasuke goes to the village where Itachi's medicine was being made and realizes that Itachi was artificially prolonging his life with eye drops. And thus Itachi needing these medicinal eye drops to prolong his life could also point toward the fact that Tsukiyomi was what was killing him, and thus Tsukiyomi is what was causing Itachi's chakra disease. However, Itachi's chakra disease isn't the only thing that was killing him, because Itachi compounded the issue of his chakra disease with overusage of his MS. See, because Itachi was a spy for Konoha in the Akatsuki, he often found himself in—
All right, so I want to discuss this as well. So NCHammer's seemingly implying that the detrimental effects of the MS overusage is separate from the terminal illness that Itachi had to endure, right? Now, those don't have to be necessarily mutually exclusive, right? Another theory is that perhaps each MS detrimental effect is different from Uchiha to Uchiha, right? We only see this happen with 2 people, 2 Uchiha natives, right? Sasuke, he loses his sight, and then Itachi, where he's losing his sight and he's having these weird chakra, these detrimental chakra effects as well, right? Like coughing up blood and being fatigued, etc. So perhaps this is his version of detrimental effects due to MS overusage, right? That is certainly perhaps the case, with evidence again being that in the Sasuke novel, it is indicated that Itachi was using eye drops for the detrimental effects of his illness and or the MS overusage, right? So it could be either one, it could be a combination of both, or it could be just the MS overusage, and simply put, the detrimental effects vary from Uchiha to Uchiha, right? Those are all theoretically possible. I tend to believe, in my opinion, right, this is all theoretical, that the illness is separate from the MS overusage, right? And these compounded into the detrimental effects Itachi experienced, right? The MS overusage, the loss of light, plus his body failing him due to the terminal illness that he was experiencing. So it is certainly vague, right, narratively, what exactly was going on with Itachi. What we do know definitively is that MS overusage was a factor in the decline of Itachi's ability to combat other shinobi, right? That is definitive. Now, is it the only factor that was playing a role in the deterioration of his health and his ability to fight and combat other shinobi? That we don't know. That we have to create theories, right? We must propose theories to attempt to explain why that is. But I actually do agree with NCHammer. I do believe the sort of coughing of blood and the deteriorating chakra, etc., was something separate, right? Because that seems to be only a singular, unique case with Itachi. So, in my opinion, I do believe it was a combination of both the MS overusage and his unique terminal illness. Let's continue.
in very high-level fights, and therefore Itachi would repeatedly have to use things like Amaterasu or his Susanoo. And considering the fact that he had a chakra disease and only the MS, this repeated overusage of his MS not only made him go blind, but also took what little chakra he had left. But the fact that it's explicitly stated that the overusage of Itachi's MS is something that contributed to his death, and not just his blindness, is curious, because there's other people out there who repeatedly abuse their MSs, and we never see it augment their health, just their vision. The best example of this would be Kakashi. Yes, he starts to go blind in his Kamui Eye, but it doesn't kill him. But within that reasoning, we also have another thing that was keeping Itachi back from realizing his fullest potential, and that was the fact that he was blind. In fact, I've seen some funny memes going around recently that the reason that Itachi knocked on Naruto's door before trying to kidnap him was because he wasn't sure if it was Naruto's door. It also explains why Itachi is always squinting. And thus, when it really boils down to it, the things that were holding Itachi back were his blindness, his chakra illness, and the lack of an EMS. But what if those issues hadn't arisen? What if Itachi had just killed Izumi, assuming that Tsukiyomi is what caused his chakra illness? What if Itachi, after killing Fugaku, his father, took his father's eyes and got EMS? Well, today we're going to be giving Itachi the exact same treatment that we gave to Neji. Use in-universe explanations and comparisons to truly figure out just how powerful full-powered Itachi would be. But like we've already said in this video, some people believe that we've already seen the fullest of Itachi's potential. I mean, after all, when Itachi was brought back during the 4th Great Shinobi World War, he didn't have chakra disease. He had infinitely refilling chakra, and therefore he didn't have to worry about his MSs degrading on him. But that's still not as powerful as Itachi could be. Yeah, Itachi didn't have to worry about his chakra, he didn't have to worry about going blind, he didn't have to even worry about being injured. But that doesn't mean that's as strong as Itachi could be. See, because Itachi in his Edo Tensei form had infinitely refilling chakra, meaning that the amount of chakra he had access to was no different than when he was alive. And the chakra doesn't refill instantaneously. Ties into the fact that Itachi was brought back as he died, which is to say at the end of his natural life. And the Itachi that we saw as Edo Itachi isn't really nearly as strong as he could be. But before everybody starts to get in my comments and said, oh, full power Itachi would be able to solo Madara and Sasuke combined, now, see, because while today we are going to be talking about how to make Itachi as strong as possible, there's some things we need to acknowledge about Itachi. And one of those things is, first and foremost, that he was not an Indra reincarnation. As much as people like to speculate that Itachi and Minato were Indra and Ashura reincarnations that didn't have a counter, that's not how the reincarnation cycle works, and Madara purposely extending his life is the exact reason for that. And therefore, from a chakra perspective, Itachi, even without a chakra illness, would never reach the chakra pool of the likes of Madara or Sasuke. Because while there is people out there who say being an Indra Ashura reincarnation doesn't give you anything outside of a grudge fate against the other reincarnation, that's not true. Indra and Ashura's ghosts literally haunt the reincarnations. Tell me why the 2 Ashura reincarnations we know were known for their massive amount of life force, and the 2 Indra reincarnations we know have the only 2 straight style MSs we've ever seen. It's not complicated. Just literally look at the pool of evidence you have. And therefore, if Itachi, even without chakra illness, would never be able to get the chakra pool of either Sasuke or Madara, that means that Itachi, even at his highest potential, probably wouldn't be as strong as the strongest iterations of Sasuke or Madara. But that doesn't mean that Itachi at his fullest potential wouldn't be an absolute unit. He would be. See, assuming that Itachi was able to get the MS from his father and awaken EMS, Itachi would have a full-bodied Susanoo, meaning a Susanoo with legs and wings like Sasuke or Madara or Kakashi. A highly mobile defensive castle that would be armed with some of the most dangerous repertoire of tools we've ever seen in the Naruto universe. And this is really the biggest discrepancy that we have between the Itachi we could have and the Itachi we did get. See, because if Itachi were to hypothetically have a full-bodied Susanoo, not only would the defense of his Susanoo get greater on account of the fact that it would be larger and require more chakra, but it would also be mobile and incredibly fast. Well, yes, it's been revealed in Boruto that the Kurama Avatar and the Susanoo are slow comparatively to some of the highest speed members of Kara, like Jigen or Ishiki. Therefore, because of their size, they're actually a detriment in a battle against some of the higher level foes in the Boruto timeline. That doesn't mean that a full-body Susanoo is slow. Madara with his full-body Susanoo was able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Hashirama, the 4th Raikage, Naruto, Sasuke, and a lot of other FTL targets, implying to us that the highest level of full-body Susanoo is very comfortably at least the speed of light. And that would be really scary in the hands of Itachi. See, because one of the biggest detriments of the Susanoo recently is the fact that high-end fighters in the Boruto universe, like Jigen or Ishiki, are able to just punch straight through it and rip the user out the back of the Susanoo's head. Now, this is obviously non-ideal, and considering the fact that the Susanoo was called the perfect defensive jutsu, it's a very impressive feat for Ishiki or Jigen. However, if a regular Susanoo was the perfect defensive jutsu, well, then Itachi Susanoo was the perfect defensive jutsu. See, because outside of the fact that Itachi was able to cover his entire body in incredibly hard, dense, and augmentable chakra in the form of a Susanoo, Itachi also had something referred to as the Yada mirror. A mirror that was held in the left hand of his Susanoo that was said to contain all of the elemental releases, and therefore any elemental release or physical attack directed at it could be directed backwards in equal force. And therefore, any physical or metaphysical attacks that are directed at the Yada mirror are directed back at the attacker. And thus a fully mobile Itachi in a full Susanoo would not only be roughly a light speed force, but would also be able to block attacks that Madara or Sasuke couldn't. Ties into the fact that Itachi would now be able to dodge attacks that he previously couldn't dodge, like Kirin, and not only would he be way harder to hit, if you hit him, you'd have a small chance of ever breaking through his Susanoo defenses. This isn't where the scariness ends for a full-powered Itachi. Yes, the defenses of a full-powered Itachi would be greater than that of any Susanoo we've ever seen. But on top of that, the offense of a full-powered Itachi Susanoo would also be greater than that of any Susanoo we've ever previously seen. Because Itachi, on top of the Yada mirror, also has the Sword of Totsuka. And as we all know, if you've been around here for long enough, the Sword of Totsuka only requires one slash of somebody's body to seal them into the realm of drunken dreams, which is the sake bottle that Itachi Susanoo has on its waist that the Sword of Totsuka is sheathed into. And any and all people or entities slashed by the Sword of Totsuka are sealed into this gigantic sake bottle pocket realm where they exist for the rest of time in a perpetual state of dizziness. Now, the biggest detractor of Itachi Susanoo is that Itachi seemed to crumple under the weight of his own Susanoo. Well, yes, Itachi was still slightly mobile in his Susanoo, being able to walk around with it and jump with it. Itachi was by far and away not at his full speed when accessing his Susanoo, which means that he wasn't able to close the distance on combatants that he was fighting with his Susanoo and strike them with his Sword of Totsuka. However, in the circumstance that Itachi had gained access to a full Susanoo, Itachi would simply be able to fly at opponents with his Sword of Totsuka brandished and impale them with this one-slash-kill sword, meaning the only way to not be affected by the attack hurtling at you by a giant 300-foot chakra skeleton is to block it. But the amount of people that can block an attack from a perfect Susanoo is like 10, especially when you consider the fact that Susanoo users are able to launch jutsus from inside of their Susanoo. And if Itachi had an EMS and wasn't plagued by his chakra illness, Itachi could fire things like Amaterasu or Tsukiyomi from the inside of his own Susanoo. But since we know that Itachi's chakra pools aren't anywhere near Sasuke's or Madara's, doing something like repeated usage of Amaterasu to B-52 firebomb an entire battlefield as he flew over in his Susanoo isn't what we're talking about here. See, if we are moving forward with the ideology that extended use of the Tsukiyomi is more taxing than limited use of the Tsukiyomi, then Itachi probably knew that. On top of the fact that it is relatively obvious that the less you use a jutsu, the less chakra it's going to consume. And yet Itachi, rather interestingly, always seems to use Tsukiyomi for at least 24 hours. Now, these 24 hours in the Tsukiyomi universe take less than a second in real time. But in this real time, Itachi is standing still in the real world. However, that weakness is immediately nullified when we consider the fact that he's surrounded by a perfect Susanoo that most people won't be able to punch through. However, if Itachi were to use Tsukiyomi for hypothetically an hour or maybe 2 hours, the amount of time it would take in the real world for him to fire that off would be infinitesimally small. But you're probably asking yourself, Nick, why would Itachi use Tsukiyomi for that short of a time period? Well, it's been established that Itachi using Tsukiyomi on people like Sasuke or Kakashi for more than 24 hours was enough to put them in a coma. A coma that only a medical ninjutsu specialist at the level of Tsunade would be able to break them out of. However, what if the goal wasn't to place the person that he was fighting against into a coma? What if the goal was to accomplish something somewhat akin to what Gojo did in the Shibuya incident? See, Gojo, by firing Infinite Void for 0.2 seconds, was able to stun hundreds of combatants simultaneously. What if Itachi, by limiting the usage of a Tsukiyomi to just a couple of hours or even just a couple of minutes on individual targets, was able to use Tsukiyomi tens, if not hundreds of times a day? Now, the opponents he would be using the Tsukiyomi against wouldn't be killed by the Tsukiyomi, something that he is capable of doing, mind you, or even placed in a coma, but they would be temporarily stunned. And with this couple of second moment when they realize that they're not tied to a cross getting stabbed for an hour, Itachi would be able to capitalize on their confusion confusion and either run them through this Totsuka blade or douse them in the black flames of Amaterasu. Because while Amaterasu is one of the most useless amateur abilities we've ever seen, it does work really well against an opponent who's standing still. And we know that Amaterasu is substantially less taxing than Tsukiyomi on account of the fact that Itachi uses it sometimes in Naruto and uses it multiple times in one day. And that's the real scary bit of a fully realized potential Itachi. See, because while you're preparing for the swing of a gigantic one-hit kill sword, if you make eye contact with him while he's floating in his Susanoo, he can lock you up for a couple of moments as you deal with the reality of watching your bones melt while tied to a cross. And at that point, you're probably realizing that it's better to be sealed in the world of drunken dreams than to get burned to a crisp through Amaterasu. However, the craziest bit of all of this, if we're not assuming that Tsukiyomi is what killed Itachi and instead he was just born with the chakra illness, Itachi wouldn't even need to go through all of these steps. If hypothetically the reason that Itachi doesn't use Tsukiyomi for longer than 72 hours is just because using it for longer than 72 hours is incredibly chakra depletive, then that means that what Itachi did to Izumi is replicatable. But let me quickly go over exactly what Itachi did do to Izumi. See, Itachi at the beginning of the Uchiha Massacre realized that he needed to kill Izumi first so that he would go through with it. Because if he had the wherewithal to kill Izumi, he would have the wherewithal to kill the rest of the clan. However, Itachi didn't want to just cut down Izumi like he would cut down the rest of the Uchiha clan. And thus at the beginning of the worst night of Itachi and Sasuke's lives, Itachi placed Izumi, his girlfriend, into a Tsukiyomi that showed her the entirety of their life together. A life where Itachi became a Jonin and ran missions for Konoha. A life where Izumi had children and Itachi and Izumi raised them together. A life where Itachi and Izumi died side by side of old age 60 or so years after the night of the Uchiha Massacre. However, when Izumi died in the Tsukiyomi world of old age, she awoke back to the regular world. But the shock of realizing that the last 60 years that she had lived were a lie fabricated by Itachi causes her to have a heart attack and die in the real world. And while some can say this is a fluke, we don't know, because Itachi never tries to use Tsukiyomi on somebody for as long as he uses it on Izumi after using it on Izumi. So based off the small sample size that we have, if Itachi makes the Tsukiyomi realm feel real enough to the person being placed in it, and then maybe after a year or 2 years or 3 years or 60 years of life in the Tsukiyomi realm, you die of either natural causes or something else. When you're snapped out of the genjutsu because of that, the shock of returning back to the real world and learning everything you've done over what felt like a lifetime was a lie might be enough shock to kill you. Meaning that if Itachi didn't have a chakra disease and had an EMS and therefore was able to replicate what he did to Izumi, means that Itachi probably wouldn't have to worry about using a Susanoo or the Sword of Totsuka or even Amaterasu, because the second that he locked eyes with somebody, he'd be able to place them in a genjutsu that would kill them. Something that is impossible to everybody not named Kaguya Otsutsuki. And even technically, her genjutsu doesn't kill you, it's the divine tree that gobbles you up after you get placed in the genjutsu. I mean, we're talking Izanami level genjutsu being placed on people through the medium of the Tsukiyomi here. And there's objectively no reason that we know of that Itachi wouldn't be able to do this to multiple people, assuming he had an EMS and no chakra disease. And thus, if your name wasn't Sakura, you'd have to fight Itachi with your eyes closed. And for those of you saying, well, oh, but Itachi would be standing still on the battlefield for those 60 years that he was painting out somebody's life inside of the Tsukiyomi realm. Because in the second Itachi light novel, Book of Dark Night, we learned that 1 second in the Tsukiyomi world is equivalent to 1 times 10 to the negative 11th seconds in the Tsukiyomi realm. That's a big number, actually. It's a very small number, so let me conceptualize what that means to you. That means for every second that passes in the real world, 100 billion seconds pass in the Tsukiyomi realm. Now, 100 billion seconds is roughly 1.7 billion minutes, which is about 28 million hours, which is about 1.15 million days, also known as about 3,000 years. So yeah, if Itachi wants to place you in a Tsukiyomi realm for 3,000 years, he'll have to stand still for a second, which is why I said him using Tsukiyomi on somebody for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours is an infinitesimally small amount of time that he'll be standing still. However, this isn't where Itachi's hypothetical hacks end. So Itachi showed us in his Edo form that he had access to a long-range attack in his Susanoo, the Magatama. Now, he only ever launched these Magatama at the giant gravity well that Edo Nagato was creating using Shiira Tensei, but still, this proved to us that Itachi Susanoo has more weapon options than just the Sword of Totsuka and the Yatamir. And the only other person that we've ever actually seen use these Magatama was Madara. The Madara only ever uses these Magatama in his full-bodied Susanoo. Right. And that's not crazy to assume, since Itachi had access to these Magatama in a non-completed Susanoo body, that if Itachi gained access to a full Susanoo, the Magatama might also see an upgrade. Much in the same way that Sasuke's Susanoo bow that he has access to in his non-full-bodied Susanoo gets stronger when he uses his full-body Susanoo, because he can only pull off Indra's arrow in his full-body Susanoo, and not while he's in his skeletal form or even his armored form. But how would these Magatama get stronger? Well, like with the upgrade in Sasuke's bow, they could just get bigger or faster, but the Magatama, kind of like Kakashi's shuriken in his Susanoo form, could also be endowed with an innate ninjutsu ability. See, because while Kakashi had Kamui shuriken, there's technically nothing stopping Itachi from making something along the lines of an Amaterasu Magatama. Now I know some of you are probably saying, oh, but Itachi doesn't have Kagetsuchi. No, he doesn't, but he does have the ability to fire Amaterasu onto things, and consider the fact that he'd be holding his Magatama with a chakra construct hand
that he can do
attached to the Susanoo and not his real physical body, there's really nothing stopping him from just nuking the Magatama in his hand and throwing them. There's also the possibility that Itachi would be able to imbue the power of his Magatama with the power of the Totsuka blade. See, because here's the thing, the reason the Totsuka blade is so incredibly powerful is its sheath, the giant sake gourd that the sword sits in when it's not being used. If hypothetically Itachi were to place his Magatama in this giant sake gourd and then pull them out of it, there's really nothing stopping him from imbuing the Magatama individually with the powers of the Totsuka blade. Meaning, kind of like how anybody hit by Kakashi's Kamui shurikens, anybody hit by Itachi's Magatama would immediately be sealed into the realm of drunken dreams. And this logic tracks. If Kakashi can apply an MS ability to his shuriken, why wouldn't Itachi be able to do the same with his Magatama? And when he ties into the fact that Edo Itachi was able to keep up with the likes of KCM1 Naruto and Killer Bee.
Alright, so I certainly want to discuss this part, right? He is implying that the Totsuka blade sort of essence could be applied to the Yosaka beads, is what he calls them in the anime, what Itachi calls these beads in the anime, right? Now, the reason that his Kakashi analogy is a false equivalency, right, is because Kakashi is using an MS ability on the shuriken, right, when he's battling Kaguya, respectively, while conversely, it is implied and essentially indicated that the tools that Itachi's Susanoo possesses, right, which are the Totsuka blade and Yarame respectively, aren't native to himself. They're not inherited by him. He acquired them, right? Orochimaru says, where did you find these tools? Implying he was already aware of them, with him being older than Itachi, right, as we all know. This wasn't a new revelation to Orochimaru. He was aware of these tools and questioned how Itachi acquired them, right? So to imply that Itachi could apply the essence of the Totsuka blade and its properties to the Yosaka beads is, in my opinion, is purely speculative, in my opinion, because again, it's not an MS ability, it's an acquired tool that he, again, acquired sometime throughout his shinobi career. Hence, I don't think that's possible. It's theoretically possible, but unlikely, in my opinion. It's certainly unlikely. There are moments where he could have used that ability, perhaps, such as against Edo Nagato, for example. If he was able to do such a thing when he was in Edo had infinite chakra, why didn't he attempt it at that time if that was possible? It certainly would have aided him, right? He wouldn't even need to attack Edo Nagato even in close quarters. He could simply just apply the Totsuka blade properties to the Yosaka beads, throw on that Edo Nagato, and he'd be sealed, and that'd be the end of it. There would be no Chibaku Tensei threat. None of that would have even been, none of that exchange would have even have been necessary if Itachi was able to do that. Hence, I would conclude that more than likely he could not do that. I don't think that's most likely possible. It's theoretically possible, but I think it's unlikely. But either way, let's continue. Great video so far and great logic overall by NCHammer so far with this video.
Edo Itachi, who objectively didn't have a chakra disease, but was the reincarnation of Itachi at the end of his life, was already fast enough to keep up with two of the fastest people in the entire universe. And if Itachi were to hypothetically A, have the precognition and reaction speeds granted through an EMS, and B, have a stronger body that wasn't racked by a chakra disease, then there's really nothing stopping us from highballing Itachi's hypothetical speed to KCM2 Naruto. I mean, this would be a physically stronger and faster Itachi who'd be able to reinforce his body.
I'll give my
with
take
chakra.
on that after.
He should, for all intents and purposes, be faster than Edo Itachi. And thus, where does the highest possible potential of Itachi lie? Well, some of you aren't gonna like this answer, but realistically, it's War Arc Sasuke after he gets the 6-Tome Rinnegan. See, from an AP, speed, and durability perspective, there's really no reason that Itachi wouldn't be able to achieve the heights that 6-Tome Rinnegan Sasuke had achieved. See, while the hacks of 6-Tome Rinnegan Sasuke and EMS Itachi would be different, they wouldn't be that crazily different. Itachi's full-body Susanoo would be stronger than that of Sasuke's. It might be a little bit smaller because Itachi's chakra pool was smaller, but the weapons that Itachi would have access to would greatly outclass basically anything that Sasuke has access to outside of Indra's arrow. Something that we're not entirely sure he's able to do ever again, mind you. It ties into the fact that Sasuke basically never uses any of the original 6 paths of the Rinnegan, and really all Sasuke got out of the 6 Tomei Rinnegan was obviously greater precognition and reaction times, but mostly the ability to track entities between dimensions, open dimensional portals himself, and also heavenly hand power. And while Itachi has no extra dimensional abilities and no ability to teleport, he does, like I established, have access to a stronger Susanoo. On top of this, it's really not until Sasuke awakens to the 6 Tomei Rinnegan that he gets access to any high-level genjutsu. And by high level, I mean genjutsu that would work on high-level fighters. Because after Sasuke gets the 6 Tomei Rinnegan, he's able to place Sakura, who's all but immune to genjutsu, under genjutsu. Thus, it's really not until Sasuke gets the 6 Tomei Rinnegan that he would have an answer for a fully realized Tsukiyomi Eye. However, the only reason that Itachi with 2 EMSs would be able to be as powerful as Sasuke with the 6 Tomei Rinnegan is because fundamentally Itachi was more talented and had a better kit for his Susanoo. But Itachi wouldn't be able to scale to the highest heights of Sasuke or Madara, because Sasuke and Madara are able to scale far beyond what an EMS can accomplish with the usage of the Rinnegan, something that Itachi would never get his hands on. Now, some of you out there say, but there's other ways that Itachi could get strong, like Sage Mode, and I'm not gonna tolerate that line of thinking. See, because, well, yes, Itachi probably didn't become a sage in his regular life because his chakra illness made his body too weak and made it so he didn't have access to enough chakra to undergo the sage transformation. But you want to know another reason that Itachi never underwent the Sage Mode training? Because who would teach him? It's the exact same reasoning that Sasuke never underwent the Sage training, even though his body would be perfect for it. The only person who would possibly teach Itachi Sage training would have been Orochimaru, but Orochimaru was too busy trying to take over Itachi's body. And by teaching either Sasuke or Itachi Sage Mode, they would have a leg up in a battle against the Orochimaru and would also be able to get their own nature energy, so they wouldn't need a curse mark. On top of this, Itachi learning Sage Mode would have been a good way for him to prolong his life. Not only would it have fortified his body, but it would also give him access to more chakra. And yet, in his real life, he never tried, so no, we're not fanfic writing him to become a sage. And thus, the highest potential that Itachi could ever possibly achieve is Sasuke in the 4th Great Shinobi World War with the 6 Tomei Rinnegan. A man who's able to use Tsukiyomi to stun his opponents.
I'm gonna give my take on that, folks. Don't worry, I'm about the video to conclude. I still only have some thoughts to iterate here.
On top of this, a man who might have access to long-range Totsuka-based attacks with his Magatama, and a full flying Susanoo with the Yada Mirror, making it the most defensively capable Susanoo in the history of Susanoo. And thus Itachi would be fiercely powerful and absolutely would have played a massive role in the battle against not only Madara, but also Kaguya. He would have, for all intents and purposes, been comparable to DMS Kakashi. Instead of relying on Kamui, he would have relied on Genjutsu. And that, I believe, is the most authentic, least biased perception of how strong Itachi could have been if so many things hadn't gone wrong for him. What do you guys think Itachi's highest level of potential is? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that notification bell. Next up, Shino? Shisui. Everybody wants Shisui.
Alright, there you guys have it. I still want to give my thoughts on the conclusion, mostly. So, he concluded that Itachi full potential would have surpassed levels that 6 past Sasuke achieved in the 4th Great Ninja War. This is why I disagree. Let's go down this sort of analysis here. Firstly, Sasuke possesses 6 paths chakra, right? 6 paths is a tier that is nearly unattainable unless you're 8 gates guy, right? As far as non-6 paths combatants, no one has ever touched that rare air. Not Prime Madara, not Prime Hashirama. No one except 8th gate guy ever touched that level, right? Never. No one else ever touched that level. No one else could even compete with that level. Think about it. Jubito, who is considered by many a low tier 6 pass tier combatant, was blatantly superior to Hashirama. Blitzed multiple Hokage casually, even while attempting to gain control mentally of the Ten Tails. Still had spurts and fluctuating power levels that allowed him to, again, blitz the top of the verse that are not 6 pass, i.e. Hashirama, Minato, etc. Right, so while Itachi would be very powerful, right, if he reached his ceiling with EMS and a full body Susanoo, increased physical prowess, increased speed, increased AP, etc., he would most likely not reach the tier of 6 paths. Right, this is all theoretical, And all the things that are being said here are possible. But we've never seen anyone, again, not even Madara or Hashirama, touch 6 pass tier without 6 pass chakra. Again, excluding 8 gates guy and Sakura. I guess you could say Sakura as well. Sakura was able to touch that, but she's a pivotal character in the narrative as well. The point is, I agreed with most of the video, most of what NCHammer iterated until the very end when he started to say, oh, he'd be above 6 pass Sasuke, right? That I don't agree with. Also, the claim that his Susanoo would be superior to Sasuke's, I disagree with as well. Again, Sasuke possessed 6 pass chakra, which is a chakra with different properties, with superior properties, clearly, just based off the combatant's ability to combat other shinobi. Look at Naruto with 6 pass chakra, Sasuke with 6 pass chakra, Kakashi with 6 pass chakra. The gap between them and non 6 pass characters is vast. It's vast. There is no relativity whatsoever. So the claim that Itachi would reach that rare peak power is one I don't agree with. I do think he would be most likely above KCM2 Naruto, if not around there. He would be in between KCM2 Naruto and perhaps Hashirama level. He'd be in that range, somewhere in there. Probably closer to KCM2 again. Even NCHammer concluded that he wouldn't be Hashirama no Madara level, which actually in a way contradicts his own claim because he's stating 6 pass Sasuke would be inferior to Itachi, yet he wouldn't ever surpass Madara, right, or Hashirama or that tier of character. Yet he says he would surpass Sasuke with 6 pass powers. Again, that wasn't Sasuke's prime. Sasuke's respective prime was in Boruto, such as when he combated Fused Momoshiki and Jigen and Ishiki, respectively. That was his true prime, right? He was an adult, more powerful, more experienced, had more time with 6 pass chakra, and most likely increased physical characteristics and tangibles as well, being in his physical prime. But again, Itachi's prime would be somewhere in that range, KCM2 to Hashirama level. I do believe still, like I said at the beginning of this video prior to the reaction itself, he would be the strongest in the Akatsuki, definitively excluding White Mass Obito and obviously Jubito. I do believe he would be the superior in the Akatsuki definitively. It wouldn't be contentious anymore between him and Pain or him and or him and Orange Mass Obito. Him with EMS would jump leaps and bounds as far as physical ability, as far as jutsu utilization, as far as activation time, as far as windows of opportunity in combat, as far as battle strategies, disadvantages being erased, such as again his terminal illness and his increasing blindness. All that would be erased because he'd have EMS and wouldn't have a terminal illness in this hypothetical situation, right? So Itachi would be arguably pre-war the strongest individual in the world. Right? He'd probably be the most powerful individual on the planet, excluding a hypothetical 8 Gates guy, right? Prior to the war, I mean, right? So prior to Yamato Obito, prior to Edo Madara, prior to like KCM2 plus Naruto, prior to that, Itachi, right? Post Minato's death, and in that sort of timeline, right? In that time frame, he would be the strongest, most likely, in the Naruto verse, in the Naruto world, I should say, as far as living shinobi. Right? He'd be stronger than Obito, stronger than Pain, stronger than the fourth Raikage. I honestly think that Itachi as well, I'll go as far as to say this, would defeat Minato as well. EMS Itachi would more than likely defeat Prime Minato. And here's why. Right? I've iterated this before, but I'll do it again for the purposes of our discussion here. Itachi Zeneto was able to, I know people don't like hearing me say this, was able to blitz Nagato on more than one occasion, right? Who effortlessly dealt with KCM1 Naruto and Killer Bee simultaneously, right? With the same KCM1 Naruto being blatantly compared to Minato by the Raikage, the same man that faced Minato years prior and has seen what he's capable of, right? Hence, because Edo Nagato was able to triumph over Naruto in battle, that specific version, and Edo Itachi was able to triumph over Nagato in that short interaction and combat situation, Itachi at peak power would be even above that. Hence, he would defeat Prime Minato in battle. He would be way up there as far as non-pass, non-6 pass characters. He'd be at the top besides a select few, like, again, A Gates Guy, Hashirama, Madara, KCM2, Seismo, Naruto perhaps, and perhaps late EMS Sasuke. That would be an interesting discussion as well. So he'd be right up there with the greatest combatants to ever live that aren't 6 pass tier and not 8 gaze guy, right? So that's where Itachi would have peaked. And truth be told, like NCHammer implied, the reason Itachi had this terminal illness outside of the Naruto verse and logically from a viewer's and reader's standpoint is because he was so dominant, it was because he was so intelligent, it was because he was such a threat to everyone in living in the Naruto verse at the time of his career, during the time of his shinobi career. Even Obito, who arguably was the greatest shinobi on earth prior to the war arc, deemed him a threat, right? So Kishimoto more than likely concluded, hey, if the story is going to play out the way I want it to play out, Itachi can't be a full power. He'd be too powerful, right? Logically, it wouldn't make sense that he wouldn't stop the Akatsuki and perhaps stop the war arc from happening entirely. I have to give him some sort of illness, some sort of obstacle here to stop him from saving the day too early because he had that kind of potential. Same thing with Hashirama, right? Hashirama mysteriously died. We don't know how, we don't know when, but more than likely the reason for that is because he was just too powerful to be around. Madara was gone. That was the biggest threat. He beat him. But if he were around, during Tobirama's era, let's say, Tobirama's reign as Hokage, let's say, he would have stopped plenty of battles from happening. Ken and Gin would have probably been eliminated. Many enemies would have been dealt with casually like that. So there are these narrative nerfs, I like to call them, that are placed upon certain characters, right? Hashirama died early. Itachi, his illness. Minato died early, right? Because if he would have been around, Orochimaru never would have invaded Konoha successfully. The Akatsuki would have had a hard time getting their foot off the ground. The Uchiha massacre probably would have even happened. Minato would have incarcerated Danzo, etc. There's so many loopholes I can go down and explain why these characters, right, that are so powerful were removed from the narrative, right? So Itachi certainly is one of them. But yeah, folks, that's my thoughts on the video. Very, very good, thought-provoking video by NCHammer. Great logic by him for the most part. Makes a lot of sense, right? The Susanoo being superior in comparison to the Itachi we did see. It would be fully mobile. His advantages in battle would certainly increase, right? You could use many strategies, such as, again, stunning someone with the Tsukuyomi, then sealing him with the Tosca Blade, burning someone with the Amaterasu, then sealing him with the Tosca Blade, or throwing his Amaterasu onto his Yasaka bees and throwing that at someone and burning them to a crisp. There are many, many battle strategies that would become possible if Itachi had EMS and had no terminal illness, right? He would be basically unstoppable to any enemy in front of him during his time as a shinobi. During that time frame where he was a shinobi, he'd be unmatched. Even Obito would be able to defeat him. The whole Akatsuki would have to face him. That would be the best bet. Obito and Pain would have to work together because he'd be that powerful. But again, his healing wouldn't be beyond 6 pass. He wouldn't be 8 gaze guy either. More than likely, he wouldn't. He'd have to Genjutsu guy before he gets to the 8 gates, in my opinion. But yeah, folks, I can talk about this forever. Itachi is my favorite character, as you all know. But I think that's going to wrap it up, folks. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think his ceiling is? Is it higher than me and NCHammer said? Is it lower? Whatever your thoughts are, feel free to leave them down below. And I'll catch you in the next video, folks. This is Jay the Great signing out. Peace.